All right, welcome back to Writing What I Like, Field Notes of a Black Woman Scholar. If you've been with us for the last few episodes, you know that I've been joined, or I am joining forces with my colleague and sister friend, Dr. Mildred Boveda, for a series titled, go ahead, Mildred, what is the
Beyond
series?
the it's beyond the soundbite. I think it's Black feminist research and wellness. I think that's the
Yes.
after the colon. And
Yes.
this
So
is
we're taking this right beyond the sound bites, right? So I know we keep switching it up, but that's okay. We're discussing all things mothering, daughtering, scholarship, sisterhood, health, and wellness while thriving in the workplace. Today, Mildred and I are joined in conversation with Dr. Erica McCray, who also happens to be my Sora, who is the Associate Dean of Education and Professor of Education at a university in the Southeast.
that will
And I'll let
remain
Dr.
named.
McCray, Mildred.
It will remain unnamed.
Well, if she chooses to name it, hey, some of us, hey, if you choose to name it, so be it. We've named our various institutions, I'm sure, at some point. But I'll also let Dr. Mildred reintroduce herself, and then I'll let my soror, Dr. Erica McCray, introduce herself to our listening audience. Mildred, you want to reintroduce yourself
Yeah,
briefly, and
I'm going to
then
reintroduce and allow me to reintroduce myself. Uh, Dr. Mildred Boveda. And the only reason why I'm going to emphasize that is before we started recording, you told me to put the doctor in front of my name. And I'm the
I
only one
did.
now who got the doctor in front of it. Hold up, hold up.
Well, okay, wait a minute. Let me put some respect on my name. Let me tell you, because just in case. So the reason why, Mildred, I told you to put doctor because one, I be giving people nicknames and stuff, and I be like Millie Rock,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
you too.
And so, but I noticed that I had Dr. V on my name
I
in the
noticed this
last
too.
YouTube, podcast, and I was like, maybe for balance. But I know for political reasons, some people, they don't want to be called doctor, they prefer professor, or they don't even want to associate, with these formal titles.
Yeah,
Yeah, and,
but
and I
that's
just know for me that a Black woman is probably the last person to be called professor or to be thought of, as having a doctorate degree. So that's the reason why sometimes Dr. V, and all part of the hip hop generation, right? Like we always shorten our names, and Dr.
that's
Venus Evers
right.
Winters is a mouthful. Okay, and I'm old school.
Oh,
Okay, so just
okay.
in case my daughter and her friends are watching,
Oh,
it's not Venus,
no,
it's Dr.
Not
V.
one of your little friends.
no.
So Dr. McCray, what do you prefer to be called? Doctor, Erica, Dr. E? Do you have
Nope.
a preference?
Erica is fine. People usually give me rap names, so
It's a
MC
hip hop
names.
generation.
So absolutely.
Both have given me nicknames that are pretty much you are the only one. The only other person who really calls me Billy Rock for real is also from Chicago. Remember that first episode when I said that my peers from Chicago like had a special spot in my heart. So Amber calls me Millie Rock. She was the first one. She went to Whitney Young. She's from Chicago. And then Dr. McCray likes to call me Dee Dee. That's the nickname she has for me, and it's exclusively hers. And
Did you
so
say Dee Dee?
Dee Dee.
Mhm,
Tell me
mhm.
more.
Tell her more.
Now I'm
I
interested.
don't even know why I started. I know Mildred, Dee Dee,
Yeah, maybe
Dee
because of
Dee.
I have a friend who called me Dreads, right? So to me, like the Dread and Mildred, and Dee Dee, that's where
Uh-huh.
it kicks in. But yeah, you two both have distinct uh nicknames for me, and I like it. It's very little sister, both of them. And I
How you know what? I say Millie because of Millie Rock, right? That was a thing at one point. Mimi though,
Mhm.
Mimi has a ring to it too.
My dad called me Mimi. In fact, he actually that's one of the last words. It's kind of morbid right now, but that's one of his last two words that he said was Mimi.
Mm,
So Mimi is something it's familial too.
yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, I've been Mildred since I was a little girl, and Mildred's a heavy name. Like
That's a grown-up name.
it's a grown
That's
woman
a
name.
old lady's name because I do. I have a cousin Mildred who's an old lady.
That's
That's
a
absolutely true.
grown name.
Old
And I've
school.
been Mildred all my life, like which is with the heaviness that comes with Aunt Mildred, Grandma Mima Mildred. And I'm cool with that too. All right,
Yeah.
but this is about
But it's a fun fact.
yes.
I do not have a nickname. I'm the only person in my family who does not have a nickname.
Isn't that interesting? So you didn't, your parents didn't come up with
I'm
something.
over it. I've been to therapy for it. Why don't I have a nickname? Why don't I have a
Middle
pet
child.
name? The middle child. My mom was on
They're
to them
latest.
things. So Dr. E, look, I just gave her a name.
Hey.
Dr. Dr. McCray. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you identify with.
Yeah, I am the only daughter of Gwen, the oldest daughter of Daryl, the oldest granddaughter of Joyce. I am the mother of Brittany. She made me a mama and she's still raising me at 25.
There it is.
I entered the field sort of at her nudging. I found out I was pregnant right before I graduated with my undergraduate degree, and substitute teaching was an opportunity presented, and I loved it. And I don't know that I would have tried it at that time if I hadn't been pregnant and looking for work that allowed flexibility. And so I say she sort of gave me my nudge into the field. And every student that I work with, I thought about who is the teacher that I want her to have and how can I treat these kids with that kind of care. And then I thought, I'm tired of working full time. I'm tired of going to school full time. As soon as I finish this degree, my master's at the time, I am just going to raise her and go to my job. And one of my professors said, you light up when you talk about your research. And I think you should consider coming back. And I was like, didn't you see me coming here with this toddler? I want to sleep regular hours. I want to go to my job and I want to take care of her. And within a year, I was back. And then the charge came to be, how do I make sure that each of these teacher candidates is one that I would want in front of my child? And if they're not, how do I help them get there, or how do I help them figure out another profession? So my sort of path was not anything that I saw for myself, and moving into administration was not something I saw for myself, but people felt like I had the demeanor for it. And I've always wanted to help people do better. How can you do better at the things that matter to you? How can you do better to support the communities that you're a part of? And for me, I have learned that I bring a coaching sort of mentality to it. And my fitness instruction, which we'll probably talk about, sort of paralleled that. How can I get you to do 2 more reps? How can I get you to pick up the next set of weights? And that's how I mentor earlier career faculty. How can you think about the next project? How can you build that next collaboration? And so I feel like every step has laid out in front of me before I was ready. But I have faith that it will work out and I'll have the tools that I need when I need them.
I love that. I love that. So I have a couple questions, right? So remember, we have people watching on YouTube, but we also have people who are listening. So I just wanted to be mindful of people who have, who are differently able as far as participating too in this conversation. So hence me having to use this microphone so that I can project. I was just thinking, so Erica, I am a professor, I'm a therapist, and I'm a health and wellness coach. Okay, so let's just say I have a lot of formal education, a lot of training, and as you all know, you have to do a lot of CEUs, continuing education units. So I'm just curious, and so this is not about like, although Mildred and I, we do like to flex because that's who we are, and we're trying to get comfortable allowing Black women to feel comfortable, talking more about the complexities of who we are. We're more than our paid labor, but please respect us because our paid labor is something that's usually near and dear to us, especially from a social justice, racial justice perspective. So,
And it's usually underpaid.
Pardon, and it's underpaid.
Usually.
Yes, right. Paid Black women. Erica, what is your master's degree in, and what is your doctorate degree in?
My master's is in special education, where I got my certification. It was a generalist K through 12 special education certification. And my PhD is curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in special education.
Okay, Mildred,
Yes.
You ain't getting off the hook.
Oh,
Tell us again, your master's
oh,
and
that's
your
right.
doctorate.
I have two masters. I have an ed policy master and then I have a special ed master or exceptional student education master. That's what it was called in Florida. And then my doctoral degree is also in special education. But I have a question for Dr. McCray. I have a question about where, because you mentioned that you entered the field of education because of your daughter and the time, which is a common story. A lot of, it's education tends to be a feminized profession. There's a lot of mothers. And so my question to you is, what were you interested in before you found out you were going to be a mother? What was the trajectory that you were going in undergrad? I was a chemistry major, still love chemistry. I
Mhm.
collaborate with a lot of physicists today, and I call myself STEM adjacent because of those initial chemistry, that chemistry love. What about you?
Absolutely. I had several several majors in undergrad. My bachelor's is in psychology. And so around the time of graduation, I thought I would go into either school psychology or organizational psychology because I
Mm.
like systems, I like process, I like to think about operating efficiencies. And I think that serves me well in my administrative
It
work.
sure does. That makes sense. Organizational psychology. I didn't know that, and I know you
Yeah,
never. So look at that. Look at what
yeah.
new information I just garnered. Interesting.
But my early undergrad was very much STEM and STEM adjacent. I started out, I was in engineering pre-collegiate programs all through middle and high school. Thought I would go into engineering, and then I thought pharmacy. It was always something with science and math at the core of it. But being on the highest of seven hills in Tallahassee, Florida, at Florida A&M University, I learned a lot about myself
Mm,
and the rest of the diaspora. I don't know that I was adequately prepared to be in an environment with predominantly Black excellence.
mm,
No, I didn't have study skills. And you cannot go in that type of environment that is full throttle academic, full throttle social. And if you don't have the foundational skills, you will not make it. And I was not making it. And my mother said, "You are not making it, come home."
the brothers and sisters who were
Bring
coming
your ass
from
home. That's what I heard.
the ones who were coming from the continent with that stronger, for example, because you mentioned the diaspora, with a
Mhm,
very strong science foundation.
mhm,
And then I don't know, maybe it's because you and I were both in Florida. Maybe it's the time that we got our degrees. But there was a heavy push on math and science. I mean, for me,
mhm.
that resonates. The heavy push in our schooling, as if math and science was the way to progress. Anyways, so
But I have a question for both of you. I have a
yeah.
theory. I
Okay.
haven't been able to test it out. But I have a theory that Black girls, young Black women, women of color, I think that we go to undergrad and we major in disciplines or fields of studies that I think we maybe subconsciously need it. So we become, say, social workers, psychologists, sociology majors, even teaching. That wasn't a thing, I don't know if that was a thing, but it had to be because most Black women would have became teachers, but especially when we went to school right in
Oh
undergrad.
yeah.
But I'm just curious. So we think of, oh, the 4-year degree. Were you all picking majors where you really wanted to better understand yourself? So for example, I started off as psychology
Mm,
pre-law, but I really went to school. This sounds so crazy. I actually went to college because I wanted to keep my brother and them out of jail.
look at that.
Mhm, mhm,
Pre-law, right? And
mhm,
so the second part of my theory is I switched to sociology because I found out there was just a lot of dead white men theorizing what was wrong with Black and brown people and women, right? A lot, and so I ended up switching. I found more life in social psychology. But I say that to say when I switched, I was still like pre-law, and fast forward many years, I'm obviously not a lawyer, but I remember I do have a degree too, y'all, in social work. I'm a licensed school social worker, so I just kept that licensure. I still keep it to consult with schools, right? I'm a licensed clinical social worker, right? My master's track. And then for the PhD is in ed policy with a specialization in sociology, anthropology of education. I'm going somewhere with this. It's my theory that I need y'all to test out. And so, but my other part, the second part of my theory is that I think, Erica, no matter what happens, and all of us were young mothers, to be clear, that no matter
Three of
what
us.
happens, whether we are forced off our path or we change our trajectories, right? I think we still end up doing what we originally went to school for. So in the midst
Yeah.
of the pandemic, I was still called into a think tank to work with a bunch of lawyers, and I just so
Yes.
happened to be a policy
Yes.
professor and researcher, right?
Right.
And now here I am, how many, I don't want to say how many years later, but clearly y'all can tell because I keep forgetting and getting off topic that I'm going through, I got a friend called Perry that follows me everywhere I go, right? So, right, we know I'm old enough that two, I still refuse, even though I'm a professor full time, I refuse to not be a, a therapist, especially a trauma therapist. So I still return to what
Yeah.
I intuitively wanted or needed to do as an 18, 19-year-old girl. Is my theory right or wrong, y'all? Somewhat?
I would like for Dr. McCray to go first, but I definitely have something to say to your theory. And I think I think we're theorizing on the podcast on the spot, and I like that. But yes, Dr. McCray, what are your thoughts?
I like it. It's making me think about the two sort of paths that I've been on. The first sort of majors that I had, they were health related.
Mm,
And wellness has continued to be a core part of how I move through the world.
it is.
When I moved into psychology, the same time I took a course, Black Women in America. And I was taking an abnormal psychology course from a Black man. And so thinking about the influence of having two Black professors at a predominantly white institution at the time and knowing what I had experienced at an HBCU, it was different, but it felt the same as high school for me.
Mm,
But thinking about how psychology became sort of a focal point for my work and me thinking that was the path I would be on for graduate school, and hearing this Black woman teach us about Black women in America from a historical to contemporary standpoint, it feels like the work that I've done in bits and pieces earlier in my academic career, but even more so as I have matured in my faculty life. So I think you're onto something, Dr. B.
definitely. And I think you're onto something too. So you said it was a two-part theory. The first part of the theory was that we are attracted to maybe helping fields. You mentioned how you were interested in making sure your brother and them were all okay. I know that I was attracted to education, even though I initially came in with a strong like chemistry, STEM, and I mentioned in an earlier podcast that I still have a very strong math identity because my mom and my grandmother and the stories that she tells that we're good at math. This idea of like in my family, women, we do math. My sister is actually an engineer. Like this idea of like we do math. So, but I did like I read a book. I read Paulo Freire when I did a study abroad program in Brazil, and I was like, wait a minute, this resonates, and I don't want to be in a lab. I want to be affecting change, and education is so valuable. It is a path towards liberation, or it could be schooling can be a path towards incarceration and stagnation. So, that did attract me to it. But I do find myself, and I think this is about ontology. Okay, I think this is about ways of knowing and ways of understanding the world and understanding of what's real that attracts you to certain fields. Your mindset about how the world works and how you are set up to see the world. Because I do feel like now I I collaborate with scientists. I'm a social scientist, right? Like I'm in education, I do this work, but I collaborate with quote unquote hard scientists, and I think when that happened, it felt very random. But now, if I think about it, even why was I attracted to special education out of all the subfields of education? There's a measurable aspect to it. There's something about the ways that I construct and I understand the world that attracts me to certain collaborators, certain ideas, certain practices. So I do think that you are onto something. It resonated with my experience as well. And I hope that the
Mm-hmm.
people who are listening and watching this, right? Because I think um, I don't know why STEM was the direction that you felt like you had to go in, but I have Dr. McCray, but I definitely feel like I got that messaging hardcore in K-12. I was always tracked in the high achieving classes, and the messaging was very, very strong that science and math was the way to move up. If you're from the hood, if you're trying to climb up the social ladder, that the way to go was science and math. And it was like drilled in, in addition to like I said, my family having a strong math identity, it was also reinforced very heavily. And I remember, and I'm gonna shout out Winston Groman. Okay, he's somebody, he went to Brown and he went to Harvard with me, but he went to Brown, and my daughter just graduated from Brown. But Winston was this black kid.
Congratulations to
Yeah,
Leah.
yes.
To Leah,
Yeah,
congratulations.
Leah, yeah, I have a college graduate, just like you now, just like you two. I graduated like you guys with a grown child. But Winston Groman, man, this kid, we were in calculus classes together, like, and he's the only person ever in all of my schooling, like, that I can remember, K-12, that ever helped me with something in school, right? Usually I was helping someone else, but he was so good at the calculus that one time he was like, or maybe more than once, he was like, hey, this is how you do it. But he wrote sonnets and he
Mm.
wanted to study languages. And we were like, what in the hell? Like, what is that? Because we were all being tracked in a certain direction, pre-med, science, maybe be a lawyer, but in a certain way. And he was like writing, a black boy in Miami writing sonnets. And I will always love him for that, for the bravery
He
and
was a
like,
poet before he knew
man,
it. But you know, Mildred,
that
okay,
was amazing.
because we like to keep it 100 on here, right?
Yes, we do.
I was just thinking about something. Again, going back to this theory that I don't know if y'all are proving the theory right or you're disproving it. Because I don't think that it's only a STEM conversation. I don't think it's only a math conversation or love for calculation. It might be a love for thinking, complex thinking. But I'm wondering that when we all were kind of co-opted into the academy, right? I would never forget when my grandfather asked me a serious questions. He's an ancestor now, but he was like, "Wow, how did all the black movement, people in the Black Panthers movement or civil rights movement get," he didn't use the word co-opted, but swallowed up by these colleges and universities.
Hmm.
Right. I'm kind of, summarizing. I'm sure he didn't say it as that way, but that's what he was saying. Like they were basically co-opted, taken to the academy. And I do think that, something we took for granted, like I want to become a social worker in the trenches. Those were my words. I did want to fight for our civil and human rights as a younger person. I really did. And the way to go to get there was usually through social work, right? But in fact, I got to say this because I'm the nerd. You know what, Erica, when you said you took that class, Black in America, you know what book came to mind? Okay, so all the listeners, this is a nerdy podcast, by the way, y'all. Take out your pens. I need to cite a source. The book is called Black Women in America. That's a classic.
Hmm.
That's a classic book. And Darlene Clarkheim is a Delta. I'm right. Darlene Clarkheim wrote the book, one of the editors, and also I might be saying the name wrong. Elsa Barley. Elsa, I could probably Google it too. But Elsa Barkley, Elsa Barkley Brown. But look up that's a text, and that is a classic text. Black Women in America. I read that book, and my Black women in the civil rights. I think it was called Black Women in the Movement. That's what the course was, taught by Diane Pender Hughes, who was at the University of Illinois at the time, Urbana-Champaign. But I think now she might be at Duke University or retired or emeritus. But with that said, I can't help doing that too. See, that was one of those things. But Mildred, I think what you're talking about is we didn't call it STEM back there. Then we said,
No, we didn't.
you all said, because you were in ed psych or special education,
Yes.
somehow it is not sexy for Black scholars or for any scholars to just simply say, I'm in the fight for the humanity and dignity of people who are in need of special education. Right? Just like it's not sexy and cute to say, I'm a social worker. I'm a clinical psychotherapist who specializes in trauma. Technically, I'm a clinical social worker, right? But now everybody want to say, y'all seen it. Shouts out to my colleagues in the other fields. Now it's just sexier to say, I'm a psychologist. Right?
Well,
or instead of saying I'm a school counselor, which is what your cert is in, or a school site, they say I'm a psychologist. I'm a counselor. I think that there's something sexier and sellable in a neoliberal capitalist culture, right? Where you want to look like you philanthropic, you want to look like you're giving, you want to look like you're in the fight for people's rights, but it still has to have a capitalist into it. Do you understand? Or
I do understand. I'm gonna let our guests talk, and then because you're setting me off, and let me not let. I am excited to hear what our guest thinks about that.
And Dr. McCray, I think this is important because the role that you play, even in your institutional work, it aligns to what do people want to be called as opposed to what is their soul work? Where does their heart lies?
Yeah. I have been having this conversation more lately than in previous years, partly because at my institution, grant funding is king. And grants are being pulled. They are not being competed. Folks had grants in pending status that have been archived, and people are in shambles. And my conversation to them or with them is about, well, what is the work you intend to do? What is your personal professional mission? Who are you trying to help? Whose lives are you trying to make better? And how can you do that in a way that's portable? Whether there's a grant available or not, whether you're with this institution or not, use the institution's infrastructure and resources to help you do the work you intend to do until you're able to do it separate and apart from. And so for me, that in some ways is frightening for folks to think about, how do I do this without grant funding, or how do I get tenure without grant funding? And then for others, I have seen it be freeing for them to think about, do the work for the sake of the work. You didn't do all of that schooling just to go get grants. You did it because you wanted to learn more, do more, serve more. So focus on that. Grant cycles might come and go, and we're seeing that happen in the blink of an eye. And so how do we go back to the heart of the matter? And so for me, that's the way I've been trying to help people think about it. You will worry yourself to death wondering what's going to happen in the next funding cycle. But do the work. The people who are supposed to help you get that work done will come. You will figure out ways to do work without funding. It may not look at like the scale that you thought it might, but maybe rather than helping schools across the country, you're helping the schools in your neighborhood. You're helping the schools in the district next door, schools you can drive to. And so I think that's something that we have to sort of recenter and refocus on, is what is the heart of the matter and how do we stay focused on that so that we aren't debilitated? Because this is a long game.
It's a long game. It is not just about careers. And I guess that's why I've become so committed to like helping people rediscover what they were what they originally were put on earth for. That's doing too much. But helping people remember, who they were before the titles, the commas, the degrees, and the letters. And I think we've been feeling that disconnect since George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, the pandemics, Ahmaud Arbery, the stuff that's happening now. But Mildred, how much does the relationships that we're in too shape our thinking about our purpose, whether it's within the workplace or outside the workplace?
Well, first of all, I mentioned this before and I'm going to say it again. Prestige is a word I like to use, and I'm very, very clear about why I like to use the word prestige. And so it may not even be just like the reason, it may not just be over the fact that certain titles are seen as more lucrative, right? It might be because they're more prestigious. And the word prestige, what people come and use it as now is like impressive, elite, excellent. But really, if you look at the etymology, it's magic tricks, it's illusions, it's the dazzle, it's the razzle. And when you mentioned earlier about the sexiness, right? It's instead of people saying what it is, I came into this because I want to help people, right? They will lean into the prestige, right? Because the prestige, the illusion, the image is something that we have to cultivate as part of this work that we do, especially as Black women who a lot of times are dismissed because our ways of knowing are not the seen as scholarly. Somebody today asked me, I was invited to give, it's going to come out soon too. I was invited to give, uh, uh, I was invited to write a commentary about a special issue, a group of journal articles that other people submitted, and I was invited to read it and give a commentary. And one of my reviewers said, write such a thing in a scholarly way. Like that was one of the feedback I got in a scholarly way. Now,
Mm.
that is wild because and I wrote that in my response, not because I'm defensive, not because I don't believe in peer review. I love peer review. I love peer review. I've been peer reviewed by Black women, Black girls all my life. I welcome it. But the notion that the way I was writing needed somebody to scholarly it up was wild, especially given in this context, I was invited because of my scholarly expertise to give feedback on these other papers. So because of that, sometimes magic tricks, prestige, we lean into it. Not sometimes it's intentional because we buy into it and we want the respect and the whatever and the hype and the capitalist things. But sometimes we do the magic tricks because they know that the substance, they're not going to take it at face values. And when I say they, it could be our own people. Sometimes the people who doubt us the most look just like us. I will always remember this fifth grade student. This is when I was in transition between getting finishing my doctorate and getting my first academic position. I needed to pay the bills, right? And so I went back to the classroom for a year. I had been out of the classroom, the K-12 classroom, and this little girl, she was Bahamian. She told me that she was upset that she had me as a teacher because I was ghetto, right? She said,
Oh, wow, that's problematic on so many
yes,
levels.
yes, a little fifth grade girl who she looked like she could be my daughter. And she said, I wish I had Miss Alvarez, who was a fairer skin. Oh, I've said a real name. But anyways, I wish I had this other teacher. And because she comes off less ghetto, right? She called me ghetto. And I had to explain to her, little girl, I went to Harvard and I'm in transition right now between, and even if I didn't go to Harvard, even if I went to the local community college, the fact that somebody who sounds and looks like you to
I
you,
think the important thing is that you had felt that you had to defend yourself against
yes,
a fifth grader.
a fifth grade child,
Yeah,
because sometimes the
yeah.
ones who don't see beyond the prestige, beyond the image, because we're in this
Mhm.
physical manifestation, because the way we sound, because of what the image of who is excellent and who is an authority, sometimes some of us lean into the prestige and we forget why we're even doing things in the first place. And sometimes it's not that. But anyways, that did actually happen. That did actually happen. And hopefully this little girl now has a different perspective, but she definitely let me know. And I appreciated the honesty, right? Like even though I didn't appreciate that she thought that, it was like, wow, this is the reality that some people, this might be happening with some of my adult students, have see me walk into the room and be like, you know, is this person
Mhm.
capable? This is not the image of who I had as somebody who was going to take me to where I need to be in life.
But that's the media too. But I do think
Of course.
to your point, I do think it's shaped by who we spend our time around and
Relationship.
how we spend our time, right? So
That was your question. How
right. So for you, Sora, Erica, how do our relationships shape our perception, right? I'll give you an example. When I resigned December 15, 2020 at 12 p.m. Central Time from a university after submitting my grades at 11:59 p.m. I remember having an identity crisis, right? Remember, this is a whole pandemic. People, and I remember having somewhat of an identity crisis. And if you know anything about psychology and the psyche of the mind, right, it's not just about the prestige, but we are tied to our labor, right? We can just go to Karl Marx and,
the
look
professional
at
identities.
yeah, we can look at the work too of radical, Black radical Marxism as well. But it's not that these identities make up all of who we are, but we walk in this world, it's another way, right? Just like gender, right? Just like social class in many cases. But how I got over that hump, Erica, is that I was feeling some kind of way, like I was in a twilight zone, like, oh, who am
Did you
I?
wake
What
up
am
thinking,
I?
did I do that? Did I really do that?
Right. And it's like it happens for weeks. Like, what am I? Who am I? I was in Kroger. And guess what I realized? Nobody in Kroger, the grocery store, knew who I was or what I was. I was just another Black single mother on welfare. Now,
Which,
y'all know the irony of that because I've never been on welfare and I've never been a single parent in my life.
oh, that's
But
right.
when we're in these social spaces, there are assumptions made just opposed to who else we're spending our time around. So once I noticed that thought, I said, wait a minute. In Kroger, I ain't nobody. And they don't know that I'm a PhD. They don't know I'm a professor. They don't know I've been in school since I was 3. They just treat me just like every other Black woman. And guess what? I'm absolutely cool with that.
Yes.
And even when I'm home, the only people that think I'm special is the 2 kids who call me mama. And every time they don't always think I'm special either, trust me, because they know I got a PhD. They know I'm called doctor, but they don't know what I teach. They don't know what my teaching evaluations are like. They don't even know the names of my books. They don't know what I've talked about. They don't, right? In fact, they probably think I'm wasting my time right now. What's she doing? She talking to Dr. Boveda. Right. You see what I'm saying? But I'm curious for you, Dr. McCray, especially as a mother, as a daughter, right? As a good sister scholar, right? As a leader in the profession, what role does who we are around shape our perceptions of ourselves? Like why do these relationships matter? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I was talking to a staff member that reports to me. She's over our human resources for the college. And I was just expressing appreciation for her. She's very knowledgeable, she's personable, she's always trying to help people. And I tell her sometimes you're too helpful. You can't get your work done because you're being too helpful. And
Girl, are you trying to come after my whole soul for those of you who are listening?
Dr. V just clutched her pearls.
She did.
A metaphorical pearl. She grabbed her collarbone.
Leave some for yourself. And we had a conversation and she said, well, iron sharpens iron. She said, because I have learned a lot from you. You say you learn a lot from me, but there are times when I'm learning and you don't even know you're teaching. And so I have found that most of my relationships are that way. I learn vicariously. I learn directly from the women who surround me. I watched my mother work full time, go to school full time. So I had a model for that. She went back to finish her bachelor's degree when I was in middle school. Our time was managed to the minute. It was a matter of, okay, I get off work at 5. I need you to be ready at 5:15. You need to go to the store to get these things for your project. We need to be home by 5:45 because I need to be ready to go to class at 6:30. And so I learned really early the importance of time management, setting goals, and doing whatever it takes to meet them, knowing that sometimes sacrifice has to be temporary. From my daughter, she has taught me, she continues to teach me many lessons, but one of the heart lessons she taught me, I remember fussing at her one day, fussing, thinking she hadn't done something because that was just her way. She's a creative and she may or may not attend to what I've asked her to, and it doesn't really faze her. And she said, she let me fuss, and then I stopped, and she said, but I did do it. And she had done it.
Mm.
And I paused and I said, but she said, I said, I'm sorry, but, and she said, but if you're sorry, there's no but. And that stopped me in my tracks. And so she has taught me a lot about loving in a way that also leaves the other person intact. Because I tend to love hard, and it's usually, again, back to that coaching, like, come on, let's do the thing, let's excel, let's take it to the next level. And she has taught me sometimes just pause in love, just pause and love on the person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too. That's another way. My sister scholars, like I said, I'm Gwen's only child. My sister scholars have taught me about being in community. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you have to work through things. But as an only child, I really only had to work through stuff with my books and my mama. And so,
And you're the mother of an only child too, right?
yes,
So
my daughter's an only child. And so I have learned from my
Mm-hmm.
sister scholars how to do things in community. And every friction doesn't mean it's fatal for the relationship. Sometimes the friction creates fire and you get to move on to the next level, or you're refined through that fire.
right.
So I think the relationships that I have been fortunate enough to have people nurture with me. Sometimes I wonder why my friends are my friends, because I'm like, I'm not easy, because I am of the ilk, I will take my ball and go home because I'm tired of peopling right now. But my people know that about me, and when it's time to draw me out, they do that. And when it's time to let me lay dormant, they do that. So I feel like every sort of core relationship that I have and have had, many of them for decades, some for the last decade, but I feel like they get richer and deeper with time. And the ones that matter shape me professionally and personally.
Do you all have issues with boundaries?
I think mine are pretty thick.
Your boundaries.
My boundaries are pretty
You
thick.
learned that the hard way, right?
Yeah.
Because the crossing of boundaries, and again, whether it's because of media or because of history, the lack of respect of Black women's boundaries, but Black women's boundaries, especially in our work, people try it. People try it all the time. So how did you come to learn to make the boundaries real thick?
Well, the reason why I asked, right, Mildred, because I think we are more than our labor.
Yeah.
So just in that story you just shared, you talked about a colleague that you clearly would be in basically co-lead with, right? You would be responsible to or with. You talked about mothering, and you talked about your work as a fitness coach. Because the first thing I thought about, Erica, is y'all, I currently am on cortisol. Call it Perry or call it a rotator cuff.
Oh
Whichever.
no.
Frozen shoulder, right? So I know for a fact that across the couple of years I've been working with trainers, uh, and sometimes I haven't communicated with the trainer. I think I've reached my threshold, but I do have that fight. Y'all met me. I have a strong presence, so people do treat me as if I'm stronger than what I am.
Mm.
Even though I'm petite, right? So I thought you just gave us 3 examples in 3 different roles where I think boundaries matter. So I'm wondering, how do you all know when it's time to think about your own boundaries or other people's boundaries. How do you all have issues with boundaries? Because we all come from backgrounds that are complicated. We're all survivors of, I'm speaking broadly across all three of us, generalizing, of childhood trauma, right? We've survived, all of us, because of our age. We survived the war on poverty, the war on drugs, and the war on Black people of the 90s and early 2000s. And now I can say this, we are all surviving traumatic stress, racial trauma, gender trauma. So do you all have issues with boundaries?
I think the gentleness is the theme for me this year because of that right there. When Dr. McCray, when Erica was talking about her daughter, who's a creative like my boy Winston was, right? And you're used to this harsh love, right? This harsh, like, push it, push it, push it. And maybe that's what's going on with you, Dr. V, when people see you as a strong woman and maybe they pushed you, and you broke because guess what? You're flesh and bone, right?
Yeah.
And I think I think I know how to be gentle. Being gentle is when you have a lot of strength and you control it, right? You keep it under control. So like a lion, when you see a lion or an alligator.
Mildred, give us a time when you felt like your boundaries were violated. Because you're another person who I don't
All
see
the time.
people easily stepping on your boundaries.
Yeah, you've seen it. You've seen it. Uh, gentleness requires me respecting, being gentle with myself is me respecting my boundaries. So, what's the most recent boundary?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with Mildred about being welcoming.
Yeah, she called me. What is
Lady
it?
Liberty.
Lady Liberty. Give me your weak, give me your poor, give me
Your
your
huddled masses yearning to breathe freely.
because she noticed that a lot of people will come to me for help, and I was real quick to be like, sure, let me help you, you know, and give me your. So now being gentle means saying, no, I know you have a lot of needs, and I know that you see I'm a resource for you, but I also have a lot of needs. I have a lot of needs too, and I got to make sure that I meet my needs.
Yeah.
And somebody recently said about boundaries, somebody that I was in community with, she said, and it really touched me, boundaries are not to build walls, but to help being in community. When you know what your boundaries are, when they're thick, like Dr. McCray just said, hers are.
She did, and I let her off the hook because I did not follow up. But I was gonna come back, but I was like, you know what? Let me think about it before I come back.
With her thick boundaries, which I know you've come to learn how to make those boundaries thick, is so that you can last long enough, and you're not completely tapped out and burnt out by everybody coming to Lady Liberty, for example. But yeah, gentleness to myself is saying no, and that's new. And I've never been intentional about that. Never been intentional. I've been intentional about being honest, about being tough, about being intuitive, about being wise, but I've never been intentional about gentleness, both to myself or to others. And yeah,
And with all due respect, right? Privacy for all of our stories, but in the spirit of daughtering, and sisterhood. Mildred, message. Yep. Message, because Erica, I too have raised a few flags over the years with Mildred saying, oh, Mildred, do a check-in with yourself to think about how you're spending your time and with whom. Can I give you all a quick example so that I don't have to follow up with Dr. McCray's thick boundaries?
Yes, thick boundaries.
I'm the middle child. I do want to go there, but I'm not going to go there. Right. And I'm a researcher, so I'm curious. But with that said, I because I do work with trauma survivors, and that's my area that I focus a lot of my extra time and study on. I always tell people this, and let me know what you all think as daughters. I have to explain to a lot of people, especially Black people, Black women, and people from working class families, that even though we joke as a community about getting whoopings, getting our butt beats. We say stuff like, and I know I deserved it, things like that. I spent a lot of time trying to explain to adult women that just because your parent whooped you, your mom, your grandmother, your, whomever, an adult whooped your butt, spanked you, it doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
And I tried to explain to them that things we took for granted, such as corporal punishment, physical punishment, butt beatings, whippings, whatever we want to call it. I'm not even talking about the kind that end up in court. I'm talking about the kind we literally laugh at, at the dinner table while playing spades. I'm like, you do realize I have Yorkies, right? I have small dogs that I love. They're my children. Y'all know that. Everybody who listens knows that. When I want to pat them on the butt, I do this thing. It's not really even a pet. I'm like, now you shouldn't have been biting my book, right? And I think about it now. I'm like, could you imagine putting yourself in a 9-year-old girl's shoes? Remember who you were at 9. Many of us were probably not even 60 pounds soaking wet, give or take maybe 90 for the bigger girls. We were all of under 4'7", 4'8", and I'm shorter than most people, but that's my standard of what a 9-year-old is.
I was gonna say, Venus, I think I was taller than that, but go ahead.
Girl, I'm still that tall. What are you talking about? And then, now place an adult, let's not even a man, just a woman who's standing 5'4". And y'all know we used to think our parents were giants until, we did start getting taller than them. Not me, but, theoretically, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Then we start saying, oh, it's only now that many mothers, women, I should say, children look at their, like, dang, I used to think my mama was so big and so strong, or my dad was so big and so strong and tall. And you realize that they're really kind of, neat. But at that moment, if you're 9, 10, 11, and you're standing next to a giant who you fear already, just their voice and their presence, even if it's just out of respect, right? If that person hits you with anything, already your boundaries have been violated. Not just your physical boundaries, your emotional boundaries. And I got so many examples. I give examples when Black girls are getting their hair combed. I had to teach my nieces and my daughter early on. I don't care if it hurts or not. You might be tender-headed, but you could say, it hurts. I don't like that. I don't like the way it feels. Stop. Or can I take a break, right? But we make fun of that too, right? So our boundaries have been violated so much that my biggest fear is that Black women have to work harder just to be conscientious of when their boundaries are being violated. I actually think our radars are off.
My mother wasn't somebody who was a hitter, but I did see a lot of hitting around me. I saw a lot of my cousins get hit, and I still flinch remembering an incident that one of my cousins doesn't remember, but I remember this interaction that they had. An aunt and a cousin of mine, loved them both dearly, where I was probably 9 years old, that same age, tiny. And it was an older cousin. It was over getting the hair done. And just the sheer frustration and anger. And because I wasn't used to that, because my mom didn't do that, even just being around it, I still flinch. And then that particular cousin doesn't even remember it. Doesn't even remember it. And I'm kind of glad they don't, right? When I brought it up, I'm like, okay, I won't bring it up again because it was scary. It was scary. I grew up in schools. I went to schools, and listen, it's not about romanticizing or also wallowing in self-pity. Either one is dangerous. Romanticizing marginality and trauma responses is not healthy, but neither is, like for me, I don't know how helpful it is for me to wallow in self-pity that I went through certain things that I went through. However, I did go to schools where I was constantly aware all the time of the potential of my boundary being violated constantly, hyper vigilant. And it's a skill set that I find very useful still as an adult, even when I'm an adult that's supposed to be in a very safe neighborhood where you can leave your door open. maybe I could leave my door open, in the neighborhood that I live in, the college town that I live in. But when I walk into certain school contexts, my hypervigilance that I developed as a little girl comes through in making sure that maybe a really sweet looking young lady isn't going to trash me as soon as I walk out and bring me down. And so I do think that many of us have, and we're expected to. I mean, even if you're listening right now, what day is it today? 2025. There's the Diddy trial, right? The Diddy trial that's happening. And just
Trigger alert.
yes, and people's reaction and the way they talk about the women that he is accused of violating. That right there, just even watching the way our people, a lot of women are, quick to blame the people who are now struggling to have their story, their version of the story told. It's constantly something that we need to be wary of. Now, here's the thing about me, and this is a conflict that I've witnessed. Sometimes, because when you were talking about the example, Dr. McCray, of your colleague and you watching out for their best interest, you're watching out, and I don't assume the person was a black woman
She's a
or
Black woman.
she was a white woman.
No, she's a Black woman.
Oh, she was a black woman, so it was a
Yeah.
black woman. Okay, I didn't assume that given your context where you teach at a predominantly white institution. So it was a black woman, and you are being cautious that this person's not being exploited, right? You're watching out for her. You're looking out. But then going back to the question that you asked, Dr. V, earlier about, well, why are we in this in the first place? Why did we even decide to do this? You know why I'm here? Because I want to help people. I'm a helper. That's why I decided to be a teacher. That's why I decided to be a special ed teacher. And in a field that sees the helper as the sucker, as the person who's doing too much service, right? And not focusing on the prestige and the publications and the attentions, to me, I think that when people are trying to be helpful, making sure I'm not being exploited, right? They also need to remember why I'm here in the first place. And I'm quick to remind people, yeah, the prestige and all that stuff, that's what we would get rewarded for. We got to be careful that these institutions aren't exploiting us like they're used to, like Harrietta Lacks, right? Like if you look at history, the exploitation of Black folks, Indigenous people, to build up these institutions that we now work in and are giving us these titles, something we need to be very cautious with. But at the same time, how do you tell somebody who's there because they are helpful? How do you say it in a way that is going to be effective to stop being helpful, and why, right? And I think that's the messaging of why, you know, of why that really matters and will be effective.
Yeah, so specific to that situation, my message to her was, you're working at home too much.
Mhm.
You're sending emails 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and you have a son, and you
Mm,
won't get these years back.
beautiful.
So I need you to do what you need to do so that that work can be done. Mostly there will always be times where some things have timelines that you have to spend some more time at home, but that should not be the norm. So we need to figure out how you can set up boundaries in the workday, whether it's you close your door for 2 to 3 hours a day and you have uninterrupted time to get some of that stuff done, and you set up office hours so that people know this is the time when I can have unfettered access. But at this point, you don't have any deep focus work time because people have unlimited, unrestricted access to you. Even if your door is closed, they're knocking and you're letting them in.
I love it.
But I think too, that's why we need more Black women. I shouldn't say but, and that's why we need more Black women in leadership. Because I was sitting up here and I was like, damn, this is gonna come across on YouTube with my face. I'm so used to the podcast because I have somebody said I wear my heart on my face, but I was literally just thinking like, come back. Like I think we need to hear that. Like it's a lot of stuff we need to hear that you said. Um, so I do have another question, right, that I want to throw out there, and it's this idea of it is undeniable that America, that Black women across the diaspora have been exposed to a lot of traumatic stress lately. And I pay attention not only to what happens in our community, our neighborhoods, our communities, our schools, across the nation, in maternity wards and prisons, right? Um, but what's happening even in what we thought was safe spaces, the academy. Um, we've all seen and we're kind of shocked, like, whoa, Black women are being publicly harassed, um, publicly harassed in the workplace. Black women are engaging in self-harm and even having completed suicide, while being exposed to the public's eye,
Right.
so to speak. And so I do want to leave. I do want to leave like on a very positive note, because people come here for tools.
Yes.
And I think that this podcast series is about, giving tools while also sharing our lived experiences and life lessons so that we can be better citizens to other Black people and other people in general in our workplaces, So for you, Dr. McCray, right? What are some things that do you do to cope with, to manage, to buffer stress?
I have always been physically active, but I think in my earlier years, it was just because everybody was doing it. That was what we did. We were active. In my neighborhood, we rode bikes, we ran, we cheered, we did all the things. And as I got into adulthood with my daughter, it was, I want to be active so that I can do things with her. She's active, she's got energy, and I want to be able to keep pace. About a little over 10 years ago, I had a pretty serious health scare, and the doctor said that I survived because I was healthy. And so that sort of ties into some trauma. So sometimes I have to remind myself that I get to move my body. I don't have to move my body so that I can survive. I get to move my body. And that allows me to thrive. And so I make time for exercise, but I use movement as meditation. As I'm riding my Peloton or riding my bike outside, or I'm on my treadmill, or I'm lifting weights, I am giving myself gratitude. I'm grateful that I can do these things. I'm grateful that I can lift weights. I'm grateful that my heart is strong and healthy, because I know that's not everybody's story. I also enjoy sleep. I have a pretty strict bedtime routine. And my friends laugh at me because it's gotten even more meticulous. I make my tea at 9:15. I shower. I get into bed. I put on my magnesium butter. The lights go off at 10. The air purifier comes on. Like I treat sleep like a sport, because I just want to give my body time to restore. I know that's important. I also have a very deep faith practice, and that is one of the ways that I also connect my movement, because I'm grateful for my body to be able to do these things, and I know that God allows that. And so when I feel like sometimes things are getting off kilter, I have to sort of come back and say, okay, you're losing sight of him. Are you doing this to honor him? Because if you can't say yes to that unequivocally, or start to look like you could get side-eyed for that, you need to bring it back in alignment. So even this morning, I was thinking about my workout. As soon as my eyes open, before they even open, I started thinking about, okay, what is the workout of the day? And I had to pause and say, Lord, I'm sorry. I didn't even thank you for waking me up to have that thought. And I had to reel it back. And so movement is medicine. I tell anybody that our bodies are a gift, and we choose how we treat them and take care of the gifts that we have. And it allows healthy minds and bodies allow us to connect with others in ways that will allow us to continue to do the things that bring us joy. I don't know if y'all saw, have y'all seen, I know Mildred has seen Sinners. Dr. V, have you seen Sinners?
I did, and I'm still downloading. I'm still processing
I've seen
everything.
it
Yeah.
twice now. And
The sweat, right? The sweat in the movie. Is that what you talk about?
Yes, that the Afro-futurity of this is where this came from. And the emphasis on for that period of time, we were free.
Mm.
For a
Mhm.
few hours, we were free. So how can I, for me, it's movement, it's meditation, it's prayer. How can I take back moments of my day, hours of my day to feel free?
Mm.
And so that might not look the same way for everybody else, but I think if that's front of mind, then like you said, when you were in Kroger, everybody else could do what they're gonna do, but this is me and this is how I get free.
Yeah, yeah, that reminds me that pausing in a moment, right? So from a Buddhist psychology perspective, that trying to freeze moments is where we can, from the movie Sinners, that's where we can find that little bit of freedom just for that moment.
Mhm.
And when Ahmaud Arbery was killed, those races, they took that away from me because I could not run outside for years, and couple 2 or 3 years, to the point I just had to decide, whether it's just a walk around the block, it's a quarter of a mile, half mile, a mile. I'm free.
Mhm.
This is the only thing I have, right? So it is my meditation. It is my prayer to have the courage to even go out, just for that, to take back that moment.
Yeah.
Mildred, what's your bedtime routine? Curious minds wants to know, because some people don't have it, but I think we all should have it. What is your bedtime? But I got to step my game up, because you know what I'm gonna do, Dr. McCray. So don't talk about me when I tag you on LinkedIn. I'm about to find this magnesium butter,
Yes.
and I'm about to.
I will send you the link. I have even gotten so gangster with it. I bought myself a portable tea kettle. It looks like a thermos, and I had it at ARA. I maintained my routine. The time wasn't the same, but I had my tea. It's like my body knows, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. It's time to rest.
And you know what? Iron sharpens iron, because Mildred told me
Ooh.
early this morning, don't be late.
Don't play
Erica
about
don't play about her bedtime.
it. I told her that.
And I said, I understand. I'm off schedule because I have the college student home, right? Because you know how they running up the stairs at night and then they wake up late. But I understand. And for me, it balances my hormones. So the sleep pattern is very important to me. Mildred, take away on your bedtime. What's your bedtime routine?
I got my gratitude journal that I was telling you about the other day. So I reflect, like, what went well today? What can be better? So I do reflective journaling before I go to sleep. I can do prayers. Prayers have always been part of my like sending well wishes to people. Um, teas like wake me up now in the middle of the night. So I've cut the tea out, and now I'm very cautious about what I drink after a certain time in the night or in the evening. I'm like, okay, because I find myself waking up now more, and when I was younger, that wouldn't happen. I really like the smell of lavender. I love the smell of lavender. I love a bath. I love a bath. And one of the challenges was to meditate daily. And one of the meditations I found was a bath meditation. And I've used that several times before going to sleep. I just pouring the water, being mindful about, thanking, the Lord for like water, right? The fact that I have flowing water, because I've been places where I don't have water in my household. So those are some of the things that I do. However, did I pick up some more pointers today? Absolutely. And I want to thank you too. I think one of the big takeaways that I'm getting from this conversation, because I'm already processing this conversation, I can't help myself, right? Like I'm already living like several aspects, and
I didn't took a million notes, so.
Imagine the viewers watching this conversation or listening to this conversation, how they're receiving our sisterhood and the way we're talking to one another. But one thing that's clear, at least for me, is to understand the why. I'm going to be honest with you. I've watched you, Dr. McCray, Erica, I've watched you take care of your body. And I know, like I said, when it was a list of things, um, a list of people that we wanted to invite, you're the first one on my list because I've seen you make those boundary stickers around your wellness, right? But you know what was really effective about about today's conversations compared to previous conversations that I've heard you talk about it is your why seems to be a little different than, and I don't know if it's different or if it's just the context of this particular conversation, maybe because Dr. V, but your why as to the reasons why you prioritize your physical wellness, and it seems to me, or maybe it's me that's different, but I'm hearing the why in a different way and in a way that seems very relevant to this gentleness that I keep seeking in this point in my life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that for you, Mildred. That
Yeah,
gentleness that you keep seeking in your
I am.
your life. So I confession. I don't have a bedtime routine. I just go to bed at 8:30. But I need a routine because I find myself kind of fiddling to come down off the day. I do know I need to be in the dark. I do know I need a certain temperature, which I do, but I don't have what I would call a ritual to the point that when you traveling across cities or states. So I do think that I would be more intentional with that. Now Mildred does know I can be a diva. Some of you out there know that. But I like, even if I'm going to speak, I don't care what the context is. Mildred has witnessed this, even when I was, doing a national organization of women.
Mm,
I will ask, I do need something warm, usually a tea. Um, I do need a bottle of water, and I do ask for privacy before I go on stage because I do need to meditate. I just need to ground myself,
mm,
and I need to ask something bigger than me and more powerful than me to guide my thoughts and to guide my words. So it's not about me, to decenter me and get the message out, right? Because I see I see sometimes the worst of society, things people can't even imagine.
yeah,
Y'all,
yeah.
like, right, you couldn't even imagine. But I also see the best of human resilience. That is a privilege
Mm,
perspective. And sometimes I have to say, God, thank you. How did why did you choose me? Like, that is some interesting stuff. Um, so I am going to do that because I do think that's a very helpful ritual, not just for health reasons, preventive reasons, but I think for self-care. And I don't use the word self-care loosely, trust me.
I had the quote right here, the famous
Yeah.
quote, the Audre Lorde quote on self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It's about returning
Mhm.
to yourself, nurturing your spirit, and embracing what makes you feel whole. Because people
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
completely.
But I think the mistake I've made, or something I didn't think about until this conversation, is the race to get to bed. It's the race to rest. And that's
Hmm.
fine, but that's only a beginning. Where's the
Right.
spiritual aspect of it? So, Dr. McCray, you're not off the hook, but this is the part where I give homework to the audience. Nerd. Okay. So, first of all, the question again, if you're driving, obviously you cannot do this activity now, but you can come back to it. And those of you who are watching on either my YouTube or at M. Boveda's YouTube, here are our questions. Here are our reflection questions for the day. Dr. McCray stated, iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. So for your homework, look, all my clients waiting. Like, she gonna ask me, did I do the homework? Iron sharpens iron. Who is sharpening your iron?
Oof.
More
That's
specifically, who is sharpening your soul, your
mm,
spirit, and your intellect?
hmm.
So, Mildred, that's our journaling assignment for this week. Also, in your journal, if you are able, I invite you to this meditation moment, this mindful moment. Write about a time that you or someone else violated your boundaries.
Hmm.
Mindfulness moment. Write about a time that you or someone else violated your boundaries. And as a follow-up, how will you learn to respect your own boundaries? How would you learn that? Right? So, and finally, for fun, Mildred, we got to make sure we put this on all the socials. What is your bedtime routine? I'm thinking about it. That is so important. That's such a spiritual thing, right? Okay,
It is
Dr.
very
McCray,
much a
before we
spiritual
go, and Mildred, you have to answer this question too. Okay, before we
I
go,
have a
before we
question. I actually have a
do you? Because I want
I
to be
have a
mindful of
question.
time. Now you know Erica
I know
gonna cut this off on
it's
us, and she
late.
gonna be lighting candles and incense, and we're gonna be sitting up here talking to
Yes.
ourselves.
But I do have a question. I do. I can't. It's an important question. It's a question I had even before this podcast. What do you do when because your lifestyle is so, my lifestyle is not consistent. For example, all my goals feels like they went out the window when I went out of town this weekend. Like my eating, my workout, let's say this bedtime rituals. Maybe you can, if you can quickly say, like, what is it that you do in order to sustain your wellness, even as things may not be always as predictable as you would like? Or is that a boundary you make it predictable no matter what? Even, I don't know.
Be gentle with yourself.
That's that part. Okay, go
You
ahead.
keep getting these messages.
Yeah, be gentle with yourself. Because we travel so much with our work, I'm always thinking ahead. If I know I'm going away for fun over the weekend, I just try to eat cleaner the week leading up to it and plan to eat cleaner on when I get back.
Okay.
I know my sleep will not be as consistent, but I keep the routine. Even if I know I usually get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, even if I know we're going to be out and I'm going to get 5 hours, I'm still going to do my routine whenever we get in.
Okay.
Sleep as much as I can the next morning. So I was at a friend's birthday weekend, and that's what happened. I got less sleep, but I went through my routine. I woke up the next morning. I allowed myself to lay in bed until I didn't feel like I needed to lay there anymore, and then I walked. I knew I wanted something indulgent for breakfast, so I walked to get it, and then I walked back. And so I think you can still honor what you're trying to do for yourself while also allowing yourself indulgences.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Boveda. I think that was a thoughtful question. That was a thoughtful question. So here's a question that we're going to ask. You are first, because Dr. Boveda was like, no, we have to have Dr. McCray. And I was like, of course, she's a Delta. Come on in. And I've been watching your body. I'm like, she got body, so I need to know what's her secrets, right? The question for both of you, what did daughtering, what did daughtering teach you about health and wellness as a Black woman in leadership? And I define leadership broadly. Some of our mothers and godmothers and aunts and godparents, whatever, they were factory, laborers who were in leadership. They were church leaders. They were community organizers. So broadly speaking, but what did daughtering teach you about health and wellness as a Black woman leader? Mildred, you want to start, and then we'll have Dr. McCray in for us.
Yeah, I'm thinking both my child daughtering me and then me daughtering my mother. Daughtering my daughter asked me, because as you mentioned before the podcast, Dr. McCray, Erica, you said I've been traveling a lot. And a question that my daughter posed, because she noticed that I was traveling in the midst of a lot of mourning, is she asked a question. She goes, "What are you running away from, Mom? Are you running away from something?" And it was a good question, and I gave her an answer, and I wasn't defensive. Um, it showed me how much she was paying attention to my patterns and was invested in making sure that I was well. So that's the first example that came to mind in terms of my daughter daughtering me. In terms of me and my mother, right? Or my mothers, because I had a lot of maternal figures. And the question about leadership is precisely what you just mentioned. So recently have witnessed this amazing woman who is a leader to me. She's not my mother. And her children, how her children don't respect her the way I respect her, right? I witnessed it. And the way they would throw things in her face about things that she did decades ago, um, and how harsh they were in judging her. And listening to and watching it, right? With so much compassion, because I stayed quiet now, because this is not my mother and daughter or anything, even though she's a maternal figure to me. After that, watching how she handled it beautifully. She handled it beautifully, right? And the advice that she gave me was make sure you let your kids talk.
Mm.
Because here she is still a leader in the community, a leader to me. Like we all look up to her. Outside of her household, we have her here and she earned it. And yet her own children don't put her in that place. And her advice to me, because she saw me witness it, was let your kids just let them vent, you know? And that came in handing that came very much in handy. But those are the two thoughts about daughtering and how they help me in this position that I'm in. The witnessing of my daughter and her paying attention to me, and then the advice of this particular elder who said, "Hey, let your kids vent."
Mhm.
What about
So,
you,
Dr. McCray, what did daughtering teach you about health and wellness as a Black woman leader?
leader? Yes.
I have thought a lot about my mom's friendships
Hmm.
and her relationships with her sisters and cousins. Growing up, because I was an only child, I went a lot of places with her, or I was always around. And the way they cared for each other, and that was care in, come over and eat, bring her over here, I got her. Just the different ways that they cared for each other and the way that they maintain relationships across time and space. That has become even more important for me as a professional leader, as an administrator. It gets very lonely at times. Um, it just gets lonely. And there are a lot of decisions that have to be made without input from those that I would trust to care because of the nature of the decisions. So being able to nurture relationships and have relationships that I feel like I have been entrusted with is a lesson that I will always take from my mom and her network. And then from my daughter, I told y'all before, she teaches me all the time, but there will be times where I have just had a day and I don't have anything. I feel like I have nothing left to give, even to this day. And
Hmm.
she'll call and say, "But you're my best friend. I love you. It'll get better. Just go take a nap. I know you like to sleep." And just the way that she sees me as I'm her best friend. And I'm like, "Am I really? Because I don't know." She's like, "Yeah, you're my best friend." And I'm like, "Okay, girl. Well, I love you." So just that um love without expectation, I think. I think whatever I present, she's just here for it. And I'm in awe of that.
Mhm. Yeah. My response is short and brief. Um, I had to relearn to smile and to
Hmm.
laugh. I had to relearn how to just smile
Wow.
and to laugh.
Hmm.
Growing up on the block, sitting on the front porch getting our hair did, the women we laughed, they laughed a lot. They smiled a lot. Did they argue and fight and cuss sometimes? Yes.
A lot.
But adulting, right? And all of you gonna know what I mean. It's a process that we go through when we are socialized into formal institutionalized spaces. And I'm not just going to say PWIs or predominantly white workspaces. I'm talking about even amongst our own, everything becomes serious. You're not supposed to smile. You may be taken less seriously, or you're not considered to be strong, right? But the one thing I've learned too about practicing mindfulness, and being, a student of even African spirituality, a simple like smile. It's okay to you know, wear your heart on your face and smile. Now sometimes that can go wrong real quick, trust me. But to be able to just smile, it makes you feel better sometimes. Or to laugh, and I mean throw your head back, kind of laugh, and embrace that Black girl joy, and not on somebody else's terms, not waiting till you have permission. And so I say that to say to you all today, you all tonight, you brought a smile to my face. So those who are watching visually, obviously they can see us all smiling. They can also see when we're all contemplating and overthinking. We're all, sometimes we think, we're thinkers. And also I think those who aren't able to you know, see us visually, you can hear the smile on my face. And I think sometimes that's a starting point. So I am so grateful for both of you all. Thank you for being in conversation with us, Dr. McCray. I think I have to give Dr. Boveda credit. Lovely choice. Lovely choice.
Perfect,
And
perfect
is there any way that we can find you online? Because I know I follow your Instagram where you're doing bar work, right? But is there a place we can find you online? Should we find you online? Are you in hiding? I know a lot of people are hiding. I'm hiding right now, y'all.
I'm not necessarily in hiding, but y'all made me think I need to actually attend to my LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn, but I don't really do much on there. But I feel like that might be a new space to explore.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here today. And thank you to the listeners, to our audience. Be sure to be in dialogue with us. This is a conversation, a community conversation. And thank you and good night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful.